Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Taryn Hatcher. We have more off-season talk ahead of us, Taryn, as the Stanley Cup Final continues. The Canadiens forcing a Game 5, extending that series. So I think everyone was pretty excited about that. More hockey is more fun. But Taryn, this is a busy month for the Flyers. July, there is the expansion draft, the entry draft, and of course, free agency. So we figured we'd dip into a couple major topics. First, we'll start with the expansion draft, then we'll hit free agency, and we have a very fun cold brew check that I think fans are going to enjoy. But Taryn, let's start with the expansion draft, which is on July 21. What is the biggest question in your mind facing the Flyers as they near that expansion draft?
Well, there's a few things. I think part of what you have to wonder about is, can they offload things, which I think is a something that we saw executed quite well for both sides in the last expansion draft. When you talk about like the Marc-Andre Fleury and Pittsburgh wanting to offload that contract, and then what Marc-Andre Fleury did for Vegas immediately afterwards. So I think there's a lot of people's process right now goes to, are there certain contracts we could offload that won't kill the team because of the current cap situation, and quite frankly, how many needs people feel like the Flyers have after the way last season went. The other question for me is, I will be very, very curious to see what these protection lists look like, because I think that will tell you a lot about the direction of not only the Flyers, but certain other teams that, you know, we talk about the Flyers like they're mad sellers this past season, and the way they played, they had really no choice but to try to start to sell parts off. But the year before, they were a team that was, you know, a piece or so away from really being a deep threat playoff team. So you wonder if anybody can feel really good about, you know, their approach to this in terms of wanting to preserve certain pieces or wanting to really break off certain pieces of the team and get them somewhere else to open up space for somebody else. But yeah, my biggest question, my biggest concern heading into the draft is, could you convince somebody to take a Voracek contract? I really like Jake. I think he gets a lot of heat, even though he provided quite a lot this past season. So that's not to knock Jake, but in the current cap situation, numbers are tough, and Jake's numbers are Jake's contract numbers are tough. Mm-hmm. So I look at something like that, or even I think a lot of people would not feel as great losing James Van Riemsdyk after the way he played for portions of last season, but that's another hefty contract. And you have to imagine that the Kraken love a guy like JVR if he plays the way he played for Streaks last season. So there's a lot to digest. These protection lists will be interesting, because I think you'll see, like, you look at Nashville. Nashville came into the season, everybody thought they were going to sell everything they had. And I wonder how much their approach to the expansion draft and next season changed throughout this year. There's a lot, you know, obviously being here in Philly and covering the team, we've got a close eye on the Flyers, but there's a few teams that I'm very curious to see their protection lists.
Yeah, really. And those protection lists are due by July 17th, so 4 days before the expansion draft. So we should have an idea then about who the Flyers are exposing, who they're protecting. Yeah, Taryn, for me, really, it's very similar to what you were thinking, is what kind of cap relief can the Flyers get in this expansion draft? If Seattle is interested in some of those bigger contracts, the Flyers could get some serious cap relief. And as we know, cap space is like gold right now in this flat cap era. And especially in an offseason where the Flyers are going to be looking at the free agent market and are going to be looking to add bigger names because they need to. And in order to add players, quality players, bigger names, you have to free space and make room for it. So that, to me, is the biggest question facing the Flyers, is what kind of cap relief? Will it be a big player that they lose, or will it be a marginal player with a very small cap hit where it turns out that the expansion draft wasn't all that big of a deal for the Flyers because they lost maybe a smaller or more marginal player that isn't going to be making as big of an impact next season. But yeah, it very could be interesting with Jacob Voracek. As we know, he's got about, I think, an 8.25 million cap hit, and it's over the next 3 seasons. That's a lot of money for a player that's getting older and for years and in a flat cap era. So that would be a big thing. And could the Flyers maybe entice the Kraken with draft picks? The whole thing, like you said, Taryn, very fascinating. So I'm with you. I think what kind of cap space can the Flyers get in the expansion draft would be very intriguing in this offseason.
And I think the thing that makes me laugh when I talk to people about this, or if they, like approach me about it, is that when you talk to somebody about like, yeah, if you're gonna try to entice a team to take Jake, which I think obviously the numbers are difficult for any team to take on, but I do think there are plenty of GMs who see lots of value in Jake Voracek. You're going to have to give up draft picks, high draft picks, potentially prospects and whatever. And I think that because of the focus on the future during the Ron Hextall era of the Flyers, I have found that fans that talk to me about the Flyers, like Flyers fans that are, very educated on it even, are just like, I don't even care about prospects and draft picks anymore. I've heard about prospects, I've heard about draft picks, take the prospects, take the draft picks. Like, I am done. We have looked at the future for so long. Let somebody else look at the future. I just want now. And the only way you get now is if you get rid of money that is currently being spent. So it's interesting. It's an interesting position for the team, but also for the fan base, because the Flyers do have so much good young talent on their team that you don't want to give away too much, because like, can you imagine if they're like, yeah, well, we want like a Wade Allison type and a first rounder or something like that. And you're just like, well, I don't really want to give up Wade Allison. Like, I don't. So, and I haven't heard that. That's not what I've heard. I haven't honestly heard anything about what it would take for somebody to take on Jake, but you'd imagine they'd want a young up and comer who doesn't cost them a lot of money and is, high ROI, high return on investment when it comes to all that stuff. So it'll be interesting.
It will. And in contrast to probably belief among a good portion of the fan base, I think the Flyers actually like their core still. If you remember, General Manager Chuck Fletcher hit on it in May at his end of the season press conference, how the majority of their veteran players were some of their top performers. So I think the Flyers still like their core. I don't think they're looking to blow it up after a 56-game season in COVID-19 world. That didn't go well. But the expansion draft is the expansion draft. You can only protect so many players, and this is a business. And if you have to expose a player with a high cap hit, you bite the bullet of possibly losing him, but you also get great cap relief. So I think the Flyers, if they don't protect Jacob Voracek, which is a good chance they might not, they'll be ready to react however it unfolds. If he gets taken, then yes, there's cap relief. If they still have Jacob Voracek, I'll bet money the Flyers will be very happy. People in-house that are working for the Flyers will be happy they still have a guy like Jacob Voracek. He's been here a long time. He puts up points. He plays a lot of games. He's constantly in the lineup. So I think the Flyers are going into this open-minded. And Karen, I think JVR is going to be a really appealing guy to a team like the Kraken, because not only is he coming off a very good season and still producing at a high clip, but I think he would be a great ambassador to an expansion team in terms of he's great with the media. He's great in public. He's very fan-oriented, family-oriented. I think he'd be a good guy. As we know, he's the Flyers NHLPA rep. I just think he would be really great in Seattle. I think he'd be a great guy in the community to kind of make Seattle a brand. I think that would be a tough loss for the Flyers, and I think that's why JVR could be very appealing too.
Yeah, I think James last year obviously put together a great run and showed just how much he does have left in the tank. Also, just like you said, easy to deal with for the media. He's very I wouldn't say he's happy to take on the role of being like the media face of the team, but he's not one of those guys who is, like disgruntled by having to be the guy who's put out in front of the media. He takes that one on the chin and does so professionally, does it really well, which is incredible. It's a lot more valuable than people realize, because there are certain players who just, it does nothing for them mentally to come out after a game and talk about a loss. In fact, it oftentimes, I think it kind of twists them, and like it is irksome to them. It does not benefit them. And JVR is one of those guys who goes, hey, I can do this. It doesn't, nothing cuts me too deep. I've been doing this for forever, since I was a teenager. Like, I can handle it. And that's something that you need, especially when you're talking about like a team of guys who are going to be pieced together. And there's not that automatic camaraderie of, the legacy of a team and, being in that environment for years and knowing what you're buying into. There's a lot of value to that. I think you're definitely right there.
Hi, it's Brian Boucher, and let me tell you about my friend Mario and his team at Great Railing. When your deck or railing project is in crunch time, there's only one place to go. In one trip to Great Railing, you'll find everything for the whole project from start to finish in stock. They have a huge selection of highest quality products at a fraction of the cost. I know firsthand the money you will save on your project. For quality products and everyday great pricing, do what I did and call Mario at Great Railing. Call 856-875-0050 or log on to greatrailing.com.
Sports fans, are you ready? Download the PointsBet app now and use code NBCPOD100 to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. When you bet with PointsBet, the official sports betting partner of NBC Sports, you get faster bets, faster withdrawals, and faster rewards at your fingertips. Download the PointsBet app now to experience this premium sports book for yourself. So, are you ready? T&Cs apply. Void where prohibited. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER for crisis counseling and referral services.
Flyers Talk is brought to you by Great Railing. Stop into Great Railing for the highest quality and lowest prices on all your railing, decking, and fencing needs. Well, Taryn, another major thing in July for the NHL and for the Flyers is free agency, which opens in July 28. So, Taryn, biggest question facing the Flyers in your mind as free agency nears?
Seth Jones or Dougie Hamilton. That's it. It's really, I hear a lot more Seth Jones chatter these days. Not like from anybody internal. It's just, I hear from people who hear from people that there's a lot of Seth Jones talk, because we have zero access right now, which kind of stinks. But I'm curious to see what it's going to take to get some of this stuff done. I'm curious to see what some of these contracts are going to look like all over the league. That I'm very curious to see what some of these contracts look like. I'd love Dougie Hamilton or Seth Jones in Philly, but I think as we get into, it's not really even free agency. It's just like making moves in the offseason in general. I think those two names and seeing where they end up, it's going to be, for me, in my personal arena, like the Harper Machado watch a few years ago. Are the Phillies going to get Machado? Are they going to get Harper? Are they going to get either? Because that would be just so impactful for this team, I think. I think most people think that, but yeah, that's really the only thing on my mind. The other thing I'm very curious to watch is backup goaltender situation. I just wonder if they're going to try to bring somebody in to like challenge Carter. I'm a little bit curious about that. I think everybody loves Brian Elliott. Brian Elliott obviously loves Philly. I know he likes being in South Jersey, and his family, his wife and children have been there with him while he plays here, and they seem like they're happy and settled over there. But I wonder, I wonder if the Flyers, after last year and the way things went, if they look at like goaltenders that are available and just say, let's find somebody who pushes Carter, because we've done this savior act. We've built the kid up, we've anointed him, and it's been pretty comfortable for him. He's been, even when Brian Elliott was playing more and really emerged as goaltender A this season, the understanding is always that Carter is number one, even if he's not right now. So I wonder if they just put some fire under him and bring somebody in. I'll be a little bit curious to watch that, because I think they know that they can't let what happened last year happen again, and how they go about trying to ensure that. I'm not entirely positive, but that would be a part of it.
Yeah, goaltending might be like the most underrated facet to the Flyers all season, because everyone is obviously so focused and fixated on defense. After that, you're probably looking at forward, but you're forgetting that, yes, the Flyers need to find a backup, whether it's Brian Elliott again, or if it's they go on the market and look for one. And Carter Hart is coming off a really, really challenging year, his first adversity in the faced in the NHL. So that's a crucial position that the Flyers need to address. So yes, Taryn, I could not agree more. I am very interested to see if the Flyers find maybe another veteran to kind of bridge the gap to maybe a future in-house backup, or if they go out and get a younger guy and maybe want to commit to him and really make this a tandem and get them to push Carter Hart, see if he can really hold down that number one spot. That will be another big element. Yeah, Taryn, for me, it really is, how do the Flyers pivot and adjust if they don't get one of those big fish? Listen, it's, the Flyers, there's going to be, like, just about every team is going to be interested in a Dougie Hamilton. Just about every team is going to be peeking in on Seth Jones and his trade value and his trade status. The entire league is going after those guys. So there is a chance that the Flyers don't land one of those. How do they pivot? How do they adjust? They need to have a plan B, and a plan B is not a terrible plan. The Flyers can go out and get a defenseman or multiple defensemen if it's not one of those two stars, and they can add it forward. They can get better there. Goal prevention goes across the length of the rink, in my opinion, and they can get better at forward. They can get better on D as well. So I would be okay. I love Dougie Hamilton. He's probably my biggest target, as I'm sure he is across the league. I would love a Dougie Hamilton for the Flyers. I think that would do so much for the team and for the excitement of the fan base. Seth Jones as well. But there are other names out there like Jamie Oleksiak, Alec Martinez, just to name a few. And the Flyers, if they don't do well on free agency, or if they don't feel like they're in on one of the biggest free agent names, they need to pivot and be aggressive on the trade market and make things happen. They need to make things happen this offseason. So I think that's the biggest question facing the Flyers in free agency. If they don't get the biggest names, how do they pivot? How do they adjust? And how do they make sure they're getting better across the board going into next season? I don't expect Chuck Fletcher to put all his eggs in one basket. He's a smart guy. He's not going to do that. So that will be the most fascinating thing to me is what is plan B for the Flyers if things fall through on their top plan?
Are you tired of wasting time making trips to the grocery store, waiting in checkout lines, and overpaying for groceries every week? We thought so. Luckily, there's a better way. Misfits Market takes the hassle out of grocery shopping by delivering fresh, organic produce and sustainable groceries straight to your home at prices up to 40% less than traditional grocery stores. You'll get access to exclusive weekly savings on peak season organic produce, high-quality meats and seafood, and sustainably sourced pantry staples like snacks, pasta, and grains, plus keto-friendly and gluten-free foods. Do your weekly shopping in just minutes with Misfits Market, all with no service fees, membership fees, or commitments. Become a free member today and get $15 off your first order through July 24th. Just go to misfitsmarket.com and use code GROCERY15. That's promo code GROCERY15 for $15 off your first order. Misfits Market is not available in all 50 states. For more info, visit misfitsmarket.com.
The Podium, an Olympic podcast from NBC, will bring you deep into the stories and events that have defined the Games past and will define the Tokyo Games. But we'll also give you an intimate look into the unseen details that only the athletes themselves can tell.
I'm sitting in these giant inflated boots that come up your butt.
My grandma tends to hoard the medals and the trophies.
That's something that will just automatically get you stopped at airport security is, what's in your bag? Oh, it's a gold medal.
Tune in for weekly episodes wherever you listen to podcasts.
Well, Taryn, this is a perfect segue to our cold brew check presented by Dunkin'. We tapped into expansion. we tapped into free agency. And I think fans couldn't help but think when the Seattle Kraken hired Dave Haxtell as their head coach, man, is Dave Haxtell going to win a Stanley Cup before we do? I think that was a thought in some fans' mind. I think it became a thought because you're seeing Gabe Kapler with the Giants have a lot of success in his second season with them after he was fired by the Phillies. So I think a lot of people were drawing comparisons to Gabe Kapler having a lot of success right now in San Francisco, and will he win before the Phillies win again? Taryn, do you actually fear Dave Haxtell winning with the Kraken, winning a cup in Seattle before the Flyers actually do? Is that a fear or even a thought in your mind?
I mean, people are ready to like fire Mark Bergevin like midway through this season, and now Montreal is in the Stanley Cup final. So I don't know what to think about anything anymore. Like, I fear it only because, well, actually, I fear it for a number of reasons. First of all, because people will lose their minds here. They will lose their minds. And quite frankly, when that news broke, I was genuinely astonished. I think we all thought that Ron Hextall would land out in Seattle, and he didn't. And I think we all thought the Flyers connection there might be done. And then Dave comes out of the clouds. Like, I thought that was Rick Tocchet's job. Genuinely, I had heard that he had taken like 2, maybe 3 interviews there. He had taken a few interviews there. And once he didn't get the Rangers job, I remember thinking for sure, like, oh, Tocchet's going to be out in Seattle for sure. Dave Haxtell was a move. But I also fear it just because we saw how well the new expansion draft rules favored Vegas last time. Those expansion, and it's the same rules. I had it confirmed by the Flyers front office a while ago when we were talking about expansion draft coverage on Flyers pre and post game. And it really, I think, and it's the added bit of spice for the Kraken as well is like the thing we talked about with Jake Voracek is that they, like with Marc-Andre Fleury, they packaged a second rounder with Marc-Andre Fleury essentially as incentive for Vegas to take Marc-Andre Fleury. Well, I guess they didn't package them together, but Pittsburgh traded their second round draft pick in the entry draft that year. So now you've got Seattle, who's probably being courted by every team that has a contract they want to offload, saying, hey, we'll give you this and you'll get this player. And it's kind of like, you know, like the seller's market with houses in the suburbs right now. Like people who are selling their houses are like, well, let me look at all of these offers and see what I like. And then we can pick which hefty contract is worth taking and what kind of incentives go with it. And we can demand from other teams. And you know, I'm sure it's more of a dance than that, but in my mind right now, I'm just like, wow, Seattle's probably the belle of the ball because everyone's going to sit there and say, I know what it's going to take to offload this guy who costs a lot of money, and I'll give you this to do so. So you're set with I mean, if you're Jake Voracek, you're making $8.25 million this year, you are a good player. They are getting a good player. Yes, he is older, but he is a good player, whether people are keen to admit it to themselves or not. So you're going to get Jake, and then you're going to get a piece for the future as well, which sets things up a little bit better for them. So I fear that as well because Vegas did it so well. And because I mean, I'm sure we're in the same boat. I just have no idea what to expect from this Flyers team this year anymore either. Like, I don't even know. I think they'll bounce back. I genuinely do. I could just be being optimistic. I do think they will bounce back. But yeah, there's definitely some high alert, especially because I feel like, you know, they're out west, and I'm obviously a little biased, but I just don't feel like the West has a lot going on right now. So I don't know, and we'll see what they do with divisions for next year too. Like we don't even know what they're going to do. Canada's still not open, so
no,
we'll see what they do for divisions next year as well. But if everything was gonna shake back out and go back to where they started and you threw them in the Metro, I'd be like, yeah, good luck, because the Metro is just full of playoff teams, or has been, but yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit concerned.
No, that's fair. It'd be, like you were saying, if the Flyers were coming off their 2019-20 season, people would probably laugh and be like, no, Flyers are in a great spot. There's zero chance. But the Flyers are coming off their 2020-21 season, which was pretty much a nightmare and a major surprise step backward. So I think it is a fair question and a fair thought. I personally don't think many should fear it, just because I like Dave Haxtell. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a lot better of a coach than people give him credit for. He actually took, 2 Flyers teams to the playoffs. And I think he lacks some serious personnel here on his roster during his tenure. He didn't have a Carter Hart in net. He didn't have a Matt Niskanen on the back end. He didn't have a Kevin Hayes. Joel Farabee wasn't here yet. So I think he's a better coach than he gets credit for. I think he's a smart guy. I'm with you, Taryn. I was really surprised. I think if you even look at all the national insiders, they had just gotten wind of Dave Haxtell all suddenly being like a big time candidate, like an hour before it was announced that he was the head coach. So I think everyone was surprised. But I don't really fear that the Kraken are going to win before the Flyers, or Dave Haxtell is going to take them to the Cup before the Flyers have success, because it really is tough to get expansion teams off the ground. You don't see a ton of Vegas Golden Knights. You just don't. If you look at some of the past expansion teams, it takes time. It's obviously you're starting from scratch from a draft and development standpoint, and everyone knows teams really are built. Their foundation are built on draft and development. So you're starting from scratch there. Seattle's going to get some good players, but like if you look at the Minnesota Wild, you look at the Columbus Blue Jackets, they didn't have immediate success. I think the Wild made the playoffs 3 of their first 11 seasons. Columbus, I think it was 1 in like the first 10. So those teams had trouble getting off the ground. You just don't see a lot of Vegas Golden Knights examples. So I don't really fear that Dave Haxtell and the Kraken are going to have quicker success than the Flyers. Is it possible? Sure, because we don't know what the Flyers are going to look like next season. But I think Flyers fans can be comfortable with Alain Vigneault. They can be comfortable at least knowing that they have an experienced staff here and they have some good pieces to build around. Whereas the Kraken, you have no idea just yet.
I do. This wasn't a topic we discussed beforehand, but it's one that I've been like internally thinking about, because I just know like the local love for the guy and how much he loves this area as well. Do you think Rick Tocchet not being claimed by anyone else made Alain Vigneault's seat a little bit hotter coming into the season? Because I think people in Philly love Rick Tocchet, and Rick Tocchet loves Philadelphia, and he embodies so much of what people want to see in a Philadelphia Flyer. I think he has the franchise record for penalty minutes, right? Like he just, which does not embody what Philadelphia is, but like it's what people want. Like they want a little bit of what Rick Tocchet was, injected into who these players currently are.
Yeah. And
whether that's truly who he is as a coach or not, I watched quite a bit of Arizona Coyotes hockey, but not enough to really tell you. But I thought after Rick didn't get picked up by either team, I thought if things don't go well to start the season, NAV is a very good coach, and there's no reason for him to look over his shoulder. He was just a Jack Adams finalist a year ago. But if it was me and my, insecure self in that position, I would be like peeking in the rear view, just like, oh, damn it, Rick, get a job, So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
No, I think it's a very fair point. I think any bigger name coaches that remain on the market makes Alain Vigneault's seat just a little bit warmer, especially if the Flyers don't get off to a good start next year. The Flyers haven't missed the playoffs in consecutive seasons since the early 90s. So yeah, if the Flyers don't get off to a good start and they're not back in contending mode and at least back in the playoff conversation, and Alain Vigneault's seat's going to get hotter. It has to. I think it has to. And Rick Tocchet is certainly a name. And Taryn, like you said, he really hits all the Philly angles you could dream of. What the
nostalgia,
the
grittiness,
coaches, like
The mullet.
the mullet. Coaches put fans in seats too. I think we saw that with the Alain Vigneault when the Flyers started winning last season in 2019-20. People started taking a liking to Alain Vigneault. They liked his personality, they liked his Philly toughness, his blend of leadership and also lightheartedness. And we saw it. Fans were starting to put their butts in seats because they were getting excited about the Alain Vigneault era. So coaches can do that. Rick Tocchet has those Philly ties. He is well loved here. He understands this market and what it takes to be successful in this market. So yeah, I think that will be a very interesting storyline going into next season is how do the Flyers start? If they don't start well, how does the Alain Vigneault adjust? And what does it do for the outside noise among the organization? That'll be something to keep an eye on, Taryn. And
Will the kids be hooting and hollering? Will they be hooting and hollering?
Pitchforks
Just
out
never
there
know.
hooting and hollering.
You guys just out there hooting and hollering, your little tippies is off.
That's a good Delco.
I love it. I
Very
love
good Delco, South Philly from Taryn.
Yeah, I am. I'm from the area. It's
You get it.
it's how my family talks. I took a lot of work to drop it, and sometimes it still sneaks on television. So
Yeah, I think plus watching Mayor of Easttown probably got us all back into our Delco Philly.
did you watch Mayor of Easttown? For those of you listening to the podcast who don't know, Jordan has so few pop culture references.
I do.
Not to, and this is not me bashing you. It's actually remarkable.
It's fair.
Don't know who a lot of people I would assume you would know are.
No, in my defense, I did watch Mayor of Easttown. I thought it was great, and of course the Delco.
Could you name one of the Rolling Stones?
Oh no, not a. I mean that in all honesty, Taryn, I could not. I couldn't even try. I know the Rolling Stones.
That is wild. That is wild.
I didn't even know who Bob Dylan was years ago when someone.
You know what? Not knowing who Bob Dylan is surprising, but if you didn't know Bob Dylan's song, I think there's a lot of people our age who know who he is, know that he's the best songwriter of all time. Probably couldn't name a Bob Dylan song, but most people know who Mick Jagger is.
Yeah, I did not.
You don't know who Mick Jagger is even by name?
I know by name, the name I definitely know, but
he's the lead singer of the Rolling Stones.
Oh. Well, that explains it.
I'm gonna give you a homework assignment, Jordan. I feel like you would enjoy.
Didn't Mick Jagger and Michael Bolton do a mashup or a duet or something?
That's a pop culture reference that I don't ever need to find out about, but maybe. I'm not a big Michael Bolton girl. Sometimes I have Michael Bolton looking hair, but I'm not. He's just a little too. I'm not into the ballads. He's a big ballad guy. He's a big power ballad kind of guy.
Okay.
Not really my jam, but
after our most recent podcast, when you said you look like Michael Bolton, I had to actually look him up. I was like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, I did say that, right? Yeah. I do sometimes, time to time.
Not a bad thing. Not a bad thing.
When you're a lady who's
probably not
in your 20s, it kind of is. So
that's fair. Well, anyway, that was our cold brew check presented by Dunkin'. I think it was a good one. This season, be sure to grab a cold brew for game time because where there's hockey, there's Dunkin'. Well, Taryn Hatcher, this was fun. As always, great seeing you, great chatting with you. I think July is going to be really fun, especially as we get closer to July 21st, the expansion draft, free agency, July 28th, with the entry draft sandwiched in between those dates. Should be fun.
Do you want to know what's going to be fun, Jordan, real quick before we go?
Of course.
Is I fly back to Hawaii for the first time on July 22nd since I moved home from Hawaii. So all this stuff is going to break. And this is what I remember about living out in Hawaii. News breaks and you wake up to it. But the East Coast has been consuming it for 6 hours. So if I am 6 hours behind on Twitter, I don't want to hear a word from anyone because I am in the land. I'm back on the Aina, enjoying the oceans, the Mauna, the Mana, and everything in between.
I actually hope I get a text from you 6 hours after something breaks saying, holy crap.
Be wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
And then it'll hit me. Oh, that's right. Taryn's in Hawaii.
Yeah. I have a Mai Tai in my hand being wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
The perfect way to consume that information, the perfect way to consume the breaking news. I hope you enjoy that. That'll be awesome. I hope
Thanks,
you enjoy
guys.
it. Yes.
I probably won't. I'm not gonna be mean. I probably won't be texting you.
No, you shouldn't.
I probably won't. I'm gonna need you to text me and tell me what's going
That'll
on.
be a good deal. Because if you
Just like a morning rundown. Hey, Taryn, while you were
Yeah.
asleep, this happened and this happened, this
There you
happened.
go.
And at some point in time, when you decide to go on a vacation, which I don't know, like, I feel like you've never gone on a vacation since I've come back and worked at NBC Sports Philadelphia. But one day when you actually decide to take a breather,
you'll pay me back.
I will repay the favor.
That sounds like a great deal. A great deal.
There you go.
Well, Taryn, as always, thank you. So great chatting with you. A special thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer as well. And Flyers fans, as always, thank you for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast presented by Great Railing. Wherever you get your podcasts, please rate and listen, and we cannot wait to talk to you next time.
Give us 5 stars.